Ask not what your supplement can do for you, but what you can do for your supplement. I'm the supplement guy, and I'm going to tell you that you don't need supplements. The supplements are the training wheels. They're showing your body how to do the things.
If the supplement industry had a consciousness, it would say, sell more, take more, and just keep going. You're kind of going against the grain. Shawn Wells has formulated more than 1,200 supplements, patented 40 plus ingredients, and is the author of the Energy Formula. If we're taking the highest quality supplements on planet Earth, but if we're shifted over to this constant fight and the shields are up, then on a biological level, cellular absorption is not going to happen in the way it was designed.
I was in that state for years of my life. I was truly in like fight, flight, or freeze. I was hyper vigilant. I was traumatized, and I didn't know how to relax. I just never felt it. And so I would like double dose, triple dose, quadruple dose. Ask yourself why. Something that other people can feel is because their nervous system is different. Do you sense how relaxed they are? How do they deal with stress? I bet they're very resilient. When you're hypervigilant consistently, there's almost no resilience. You're right on the edge all the time. You're maxed out.
There's a fallacy there. I think it's tied to identity. How much of dis-ease or over-supplementation is tied to someone's lack of identity, lack of love for themselves? So when our electrical system, when our neural system is in fight or flight and we're, off an argument or we're stressed out, whatever, can supplements work and not be bioabsorbed or not work? Can a supplement not work and not be bioabsorbed when we're in a state of fear?
I feel like for the most part, no. I mean, at some point, just like maybe in a psychedelic journey, there was doses that I needed that were like psychonaut, supraphysiologic doses to just overwhelm my electrical system, my autonomic nervous system, to get to a place where it actually worked. I had to dose these things incredibly high. And I know for me, most of my life when I was doing supplements, I was like, what it says on the label, it's not just the biohacker in me. I just never felt it. And so I would like double dose, triple dose, quadruple dose. And I was always doing these things. And then potentially it's like having an effect on my liver. My liver is overwhelmed saying, hey, like too much is coming through. And I think that happens with the idea of polypharmacy, something I used to deal with clinically when there's too many drugs, or in this case, too many supplements or too many supplements and drugs that are coming through that your body has to metabolize mainly through the liver when you're having them orally. The liver is like, whoa. The liver enzymes get elevated and it's essentially blocking a lot of things coming through. But when you're in what you're saying is fight, flight, or freeze, the sympathetic nervous system or sympathetic electrical system.
Let's go with electrical. I like that. Yeah.
We'll call it that, and the autonomic electrical system and the parasympathetic electrical system. We'll have to just relabel the whole thing. We'll just redo science.
Yeah.
With sympathetic, the idea of fight, flight, or freeze is you're shunting the body's processes, right? Like maybe like if you've seen like Star Trek or something, this is coming to mind. I'm a sci-fi nerd. Like they're like diverting power away from like all the systems, the lights, the kitchen, the whatever, to like the shields, because they're like under attack. Like put the shields up, divert power to the shields, right? Or divert power to the phasers, something like that. Why? Because you're in battle. What are the only two things that matter right then? Defense and offense. You're not worried about like flushing toilets, feeding the crew, none of that matters, right? It's the same with your body and its systems, is that you don't need those processes going on in the background for digestion and utilization and absorbing these nutrients and storing these nutrients. You're just going to be resistant to them because all of your energy is focused on a very short now window. What's happening right now? How do we get you to survive right now? And unfortunately, in the dopaminergic world we're in, the catecholamine world that we're in, with epinephrine, known as adrenaline, or norepinephrine, noradrenaline, dopamine, etc., cortisol, this is the dump we're always getting. We're not meant to be in a consistent catecholamine dump, but we're putting ourselves in a survival state throughout the day. And before I worked through a lot of these issues in terms of my neural or electrical system, certainly doing some of the work that I've done that you're familiar with, the psychedelic work, and beyond that, it's really kind of downplaying it to just say psychedelic work. That's like a very small part of it, because it's about the integration work that takes months and years of really deep work.
That's where the training actually happens. It's not in the ceremony. It's post-ceremony training for your neural system.
Exactly. Like, I feel like you can have the epiphanies.
Right.
You can come to your, like, work through your cognitive dissonance.
Yeah.
And get to your truth.
The door opens.
The door is opened in the journey, but all the work, all the action that needs to take place, and the behaviors that need to change, and the discussions that need to be had internally and externally are thereafter. But that's the same situation that we're talking about. So it's really, I believe that there's very little benefit to supplements when you're in that state. And I was in that state for years of my life. I was truly in like fight, flight, or freeze. I was hyper vigilant. I was traumatized, and I didn't know how to relax. I didn't know. I never remember yawning until I had mushrooms. I was like, whoa, what's that? Like relaxing? I needed to drug myself to go to sleep. And then because I slept so poorly, even with drugging myself, I needed to stim myself to stay awake. And it was like this cycle of like uppers and downers, and also very little resilience. That's the other part of this. When you're hyper vigilant consistently, there's almost no resilience. You're right on the edge all the time. You're maxed out. Your systems are maxed out. Like you got the phasers set and you got the shields up, and nothing else can run in the background. This is the problem with many people. I'm not alone. This is many people probably listening to this podcast or watching this podcast right now.
I think it's a societal issue. I think about, like, let's say a woman. So our primary audience member, her name is Melissa Rivera. I know where she lives. I know who she is. I know how much she makes. I know about her kids, her family life. And Melissa, and let's be honest, y'all, most of us, if we're not conscious, then in the morning, we could be doing an intermittent fast or OMAD, or we could be stressed out about the text messages or lack of sleep from the night before. What I'm hearing from you right now that's really profound, if we're taking the highest quality supplements on planet Earth, if we're shifted over to this constant fight and the shields are up, then on a biological level, cellular absorption is not going to happen in the way it was designed by the companies that made these top quality supplements. So then what's actually going on in the body from a biological perspective, from a transport perspective? Like, let's say when we're taking a paraxanthine and we're already running super hot, or we're taking a creatine, or we're taking like some gut dysbiosis supplements to heal our gut, but we're in a state of stress. What do we do in that moment? Is it breathing? And then how do we address what's going on in the cascade in the body?
This is it exactly. And when I was working with great facilitators, we did the same thing. In intention setting, we would, before the journey, we would sit together in a circle and get to know each other and relax into that, so that we're not in fear of being seen. One of the worst things was like, what if they see me? What if I freak out? What if I say something? What if I do something and then I get judged? This is a fear that most people have.
Yeah.
And certainly in these group situations comes up. But then also, what if I don't relax into it? And I think about the breath work that we would do, the traumatic, traumatic release. It was like a type of stretching, something like that, traumatic release stretching. And all of these things help us drop into parasympathetic. And once I was aligned with this group, I did my breath work. We got centered with our heart. We set our intentions. We did this stretching. We laid down on the floor. Then it was like, oh, wow. And literally my doses would be a third. Yeah. And when I was in Nosara, and I post-divorce, and I did Nosara, Costa Rica, and I did some really deep work for about a year. This had nothing to do with psychedelics the entire time. I was just doing deep internal grief and breath work and like sitting with sunrise, sunset, doing affirmations and intention setting on the beach and sitting in the jungle, like just really raw stuff. Almost no devices for a year. And I ended up doing what I thought would be a microdose, and I had a journey. And I was like, whoa, that's when it first hit me of what we're talking about. I did about 1/10 of what I used to do, that what I needed to have a journey. And that 1/10 had me in that same state. I'm like, what is this? Oh, yes. My nervous system, my neural system, my electrical system is in a completely different space. I am naturally now in parasympathetic because I did the grief work.
Yes. This is so good. On the screen right now, y'all, if you're watching on Spotify and YouTube, 22 paper, 2022, Translational Psychiatry revealed some depth about what you're saying. Researchers found that the same neural pathways activated by real drugs, opioid, dopamine, even pain regulation circuits, are activated by expectation, meaning the story that we tell ourselves can be a trigger that pushes biochemical cascades that either amplify a treatment or shut it down completely. This is a very recent study that was done. How much of a supplement's power comes from chemistry versus our belief?
This is another part that I really deeply believe in, and I had built into this whole brand. That's a separate discussion called Mind Valley States, but was around this idea of placebo and nocebo. And if you've studied Dr. Joe Dispenza or Dr. Bruce Lipton, or even talked to Dr. Stephen Young, you'll know how real this is. The way we think is the way we believe, which becomes our beliefs, become our physiology. Right? I was just watching a clip with Tony Robbins talking to Theo Vaughn, and Tony Robbins was like, look around the room and how much brown do you see? And, he's seeing all this brown. And then he's like, all right, close your eyes. Now, can you tell me what was red? And like, he couldn't come up with it. And then he's like, did you make other things that were brown adjacent, brown? And there was tan things and taupe things and, whatever. And, and he made those brown. That's the way our mind works. We're filtering all the time. And so absolutely, this is the case. The nocebo effect is so powerful. There's a study I can think of with just generic versus branded drugs where there's 14% better outcomes with the same chemical in a hospital with the same patients that believed that that drug was better because of the brand name that was stamped on it, and they had better outcomes. There are studies with like 1 rep max, which is a measure of your strength in exercise physiology, where they kind of blinded the participant to the weight stack and where they put the pin. And they would put it like at 20% above their 1 rep max, tell them it was their 1 rep max, and they could lift it. And this is so common. And it goes both ways with your nocebo, believing that it won't work, as well as your placebo, believing that it will work. Either way is so powerful. Either way, you're going to be right. Whether you believe it will or you believe it won't, you're right. And that's everything is going to filter down that path, and not just mindset, but your physiology.
Yeah, I think about the way that a cell works, and you're an expert on the ATP pathway and how a cell and mitochondria play games. I know a little bit, but I'd love for you to actually unpack, like from a scientific lens, like a meta lens, what's really going on in our cells when we're in fight or flight. We get up in the morning, we're stressed out, and we're taking supplements that we think are going to work, but our body is telling a different story. In other words, our reality is arguing with our biology. What's really going on there from like a cellular level? If you've ever blown up your life for no logical reason, congratulations. Your biology works. You're not broken. You're just running an old pattern. After 10 years of podcasting and interviewing 800 plus of the sharpest minds and deepest hearts on planet Earth, I built something simple to help you interrupt these patterns fast. I kept running personally into the same stuff, and audience members would write to me and say, Josh, I'm dealing with the same core 3 things, which are expressed through emotional epigenetics that are our emotional patterns, our unconscious beliefs, and our environment. This self-liberation blueprint is a free training where you get clear on how these 3 areas are blocking your life, and in 10 days, you can move from being stuck and distorted on the inside to clear and on purpose on the outside. The Self-Liberation Blueprint is a 10-day jumpstart that's perfect for the human being that feels stuck, but they just can't figure out why. Now, I built this with no smoke and mirrors. I know in our world, there's a lot of smoke and mirrors when it comes to personal growth and spiritual development. I built this with 24 years of my own health, wellness, and personal development life experience. So I can save you money and save you time and start getting your results as quickly as possible. On your first day, you're gonna go right into a self-assessment where we know exactly where you are and exactly where you get to be. We're gonna take you through a dream vision process and specific breath work to create your life vision that you desire in the future as if it's here right now. All of this is free because I'm here to give it to you as a mentor in the same way that my mentors gave it to me. It is purely just my gift to you. You also get free access to the Liberated Life Tribe, a community of people like you and I that are actually doing the inner work instead of just pretending that they're fine. By the time you're done, you're gonna know exactly where you are in your wellness pentagon, physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially, and you're gonna have a map, a mindful action plan to move from clarity instead of distortion. This is not therapy for people that are broken. You're not broken. You're just bioenergetically burdened. And I'm here to tell you that removing these burdens is possible. And I believe you can do it. You don't need fixing. You just get to have a clear starting point and a plan that actually works with your biology. If you're ready to move forward with your life without forcing it, join me inside the Self-Liberation Blueprint by heading over to liberatedlife.com. Come join us.
Yeah, like on a digestive level, you won't be, hydrolyzing these ingredients down, metabolizing them down on a digestive level, on a liver level. They won't be going through the biochemical metabolization that they would normally go through. For example, caffeine gets metabolized into theophylline, theobromine, and certainly paraxanthine. That process under normal scenarios could be with caffeine 3.5 hours, 4 hours. That's what they talk about for like this half-life, right? To break caffeine halfway down and metabolize into these compounds. There is bioindividuality. There's the CYP1A2 gene that we can talk about with caffeine metabolism. And there's certainly bioindividuality, meaning differences in that gene for all of us and how we metabolize things in our liver. But I know for a fact if you're in this kind of sympathetic neural system, that would take dramatically longer to metabolize. So you'd be stuck with caffeine because, again, you're shunting blood flow. You're shunting mitochondrial energy, ATP, adenosine triphosphate, as you're saying, cellular energetic source or the currency for energy for the body to physiologic systems like that are so energy dependent. What are the most energy dependent cells in the body? The myocardium, the heart cells, neural cells, which are mostly in the brain, but now we've actually found there's a fair amount of neural cells in the gut, which we could get into the whole like gut-brain connection. But these are the energy dependent cells. And what do you need when you are in fight, flight, or freeze? When there is the saber-toothed tiger that's in front of you, whatever that is, whatever your saber-toothed tiger is in life, metaphorically, it's going to be, you need your brain being hyperactive, hypervigilant. Your eyesight actually like changes, like when you're hypervigilant. It goes from being broad, think of this as the metaphor of where you can see peripherally very well, to being narrowed down dramatically and being able to see in front of you better and sharper. Same with your heart rate. Your heart rate is changing dramatically. Your heart rate variability is going down to zero. You're not like resilient anymore. Your blood pressure is going up. Your heart rate is going up. Catecholamines are dumping. You have blood flow to your muscles, in particular, again, the heart muscle, and to your brain. Nothing is going on with digestion, absorption, metabolization, excretion. None of those things matter at this moment. You are in survival mode. and how much of us are in survival mode all the time. If you think about the yin and yang, there should be a balance. There should be an element of like a masculine drive and an element of feminine surrender that is balanced in your life. Where do we get autophagy, mitophagy, growth factors, growth hormones, immunoglobulins, taking care of senescent cells? All of these things are happening, like killing cancer cells, like natural killer cells and immunological function. And that's all happening in parasympathetic, along with your digestion, absorption, excretion, storage, etc.
It sounds to me like it would actually be more financially and physiologically good if people got up and just laid and stretched and breathed instead of slamming a coffee or even a paraxanthine if they're already in this crazy tonic state.
1,000%. So think about this. When I was a kid, religion has seemingly gone away, regardless of what faith you are. But essentially, as a Christian, I can tell you, like, here was my dinner. I'm sitting around the table. I'm with family. Bow your head and pray. You're closing your eyes. You're getting centered. You take a breath. You have gratitude. Thank you, Lord, for this food we are about to receive. Intention setting, the food we are about to receive. To the nourishment of our bodies. Whoa, that's the placebo effect. Now you're telling it where to go and what to do. And you bet you're going to have more nourishment from just saying that. And then we're maybe even holding hands. And this is now a group intention that's synergistically amplified in our quantum field, if you will. I mean, this is like really powerful. And we discard this stuff as just magic and ritual and silliness. And it has no benefit. But these things worked for thousands of years.
Well, the body's magical in its own right. Do you ever just geek out on the body as an ingredientologist scientist, and go, how does our creator even allow all these functions and afferent, efferent nerves and communication with like mechanoreceptors and photoreceptors and all this crazy stuff that we just assume, yeah, it works. But then we get clues. We get these big, Gay Hendricks calls it, you either get tickled by a feather or you get hit by a baseball bat. And I, in my life, I know you have as well, I've gotten hit by baseball bats. And right now in 26, there's a really big collective baseball bat that I feel like we're all experiencing. And it is that we have to constantly do in order to feel safe. I fall into this sometimes, even at my level of development, where I'm like, I got to do this ad, I got to do this promotion, I got to do this strategy and business relationship. And I'm just reminded through my journeys and honestly through my wife and the healing we've had and what you talked about when you said prayer and breath and connection and being in love, actually in love, the presence of love with someone else. Man, we're in a really challenging time. Like AI is coming fast. Then we have like Bill Gates, we have political distress, we have financial potential collapse in the next year or so. Like the collective deep breath that's needed right now for us to just put our hand up and just watch the bat fall has never been more important yet. That's why conversations like this are so potent and so powerful, because it allows somebody to have this long form slowing down and listening and absorbing of what I believe you're bringing. And that is just a different perspective. So what would you say that different perspective really is, not just from a biochemical lens, but from a human lens of how we can get out of the constant doing to feel worthy of being safe?
That's where I think it's been said, like we're in toxic masculinity and, all this kind of stuff. And it's not the masculinity of like power and strength and force. What we're in right now is the masculinity of doing. And we're stuck in doing, and you can bet you, like I could swear right now, it's very obvious why we're being controlled and leveraged to all be doing, because there's no satisfaction. We're stuck in not only being a cog in capitalism, but also in terms of performing and creating but also in consuming because we all feel miserable.
Yeah.
Because we're constantly doing and we're not connecting. And so think about that we need the feminine energy of surrender, of breath, of presence, of meditation, of dance, of creativity. And it doesn't need to be this overwhelming, like a pendulum swing of just one or the other. This is the yin and yang, but we're being controlled and our bodies are getting overwhelmed. And it started with men getting stuck in doing.
Yeah.
And now it's women. And it's really breaking women down, and it's breaking our relationships down, and it's breaking our children down. And we're always doing. It's how we're judged. When I would go to my class reunion, it's like, what's the first question you would hear from someone?
What do you do?
What do you do?
Yeah.
It's kind of like
the worst question ever, man.
How much do you bench?
I hate it. I never ask that question.
And it's like, you'll say like, how's your heart? Or, something like that.
I usually just say, how's your heart? How are you as a human? Yeah.
I love that question. It's so much more relevant.
Yep.
But it is the measurement that we're judged by, and it creates a lot of insecurity. And it's no different than us scrolling through social media of all these filtered lives and filtered humans that aren't even real. Now they're more AI than ever. And we're judging ourselves according to this, and they feel judged too, and none of us feel happy the more we're on these dopaminergic doom scrolls. And so how do we get out of this? It is going to be in finding more surrender. I love the book, The Surrender Experiment, by the way. But getting in more surrender, getting in more breath, getting in more mindfulness and meditation, getting in more dance, if you like, or just sun gazing, forest bathing, getting in the ocean, if you can get in the ocean, connecting with your pets, connecting with your family, these kinds of real experiences that are now getting to be rare opportunities.
Yeah.
We need to make them common in our schedule, where we're connecting with self, God, family, and friends, and nature over our work or our doom scrolling being our lives.
It's like in the supplement world, which like you've created tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of dollars for your partners in sales by this point. You're kind of going against the grain, because if the supplement industry had a consciousness, it would say, sell more, take more, and just keep going. But you're going the opposite direction, which I find really amazing. It's almost like if there was a Shawn Wells supplement and it had a bottle, the first ingredient would say, take 10 deep breaths, give your wife a hug, then take this gut dysbiosis healing supplement. That literally can be on the label.
That literally is what we set to put on the label for Mind Valley States. That was my idea.
Oh, so it's on there.
Is dropping into states at your choice. So we have like 5 different products, and this isn't about promoting those, by the way.
Yeah.
But it's relevant to the discussion. So bliss, zen, dream, focus, and gasm, which is like kind of like blood flow and play. And it's really about, yes, like doing the breaths, thinking about what the supplement does for me. What does it do? I want to be more, I am more focused. Think about the NLP progression there. Not I want to be, not I will be.
You're
but
speaking
I
in the
am,
I, affirmative.
I am more focused. This is nourishing and supporting my body to be in the state of focus. I am powerful in my focus. And now there's a psychosomatic anchor each time you do this, that there's a shortcut over time, right? Like, so when I have a saltine, there's salivary amylase that starts breaking down that carbohydrate in my mouth, not the amylase that's in my gut, but in my mouth. There's shortcuts that happen when I taste something that's acidic, sweet. My insulin goes up when I taste something sweet. This is why blood sugar can be dysregulated with just artificial sweeteners, because there's shortcuts that are happening. Your body gets smarter and faster at making these shortcuts. So the more I repeat that behavior and set that intention and have that physiology rewire, neurons that fire together, wire together. Now, when I just pick up that supplement, my body's already kicking on several systems that it wasn't just a month ago.
You've already primed it.
I've already primed it because I've done this 30 times in a row. I've got my body in parasympathetic. I have done the placebo effect. I'm intention setting, right? I have gratitude. And it gets even more powerful. What I talked about is anchoring more psychosomatic sensory scenarios to this. So like that if I add like olfactory, which is probably the most powerful sense when you look at data, which is your sense of smell. If I like add in like some essential oil that makes me feel like more focused, like lemon balm, let's say, or some citrus smell that can make you feel more focused, or something that might make you feel more relaxed, like, I don't know, cedar or rose or lavender, right? So when you're smelling these, you can connect that smell to this whole anchoring system. I don't know if you know, in like NLP, they've talked about like
anchor point.
Yeah, the anchor point when you can touch it, you can put your thumb in your knuckles, or like there's people that have different ones. And each time you're feeling really good in neurolinguistics programming, which is like Tony Robbins, Jim Quick, Brendan Burchard, all these guys like are all using.
Shout out to Scott, who passed recently, 25-year veteran of NLP, Scott Jackson. So just giving him love wherever he is in the ether.
Nice.
Yeah.
But just, touching that point now like anchors that. And then in time, just pressing this knuckle will change your physiology. And it really, really works. And it's just like they've shown like a home will sell better if people walk into this home and smell chocolate chip cookies. And so when I was at every home I've sold, I literally did that when someone was coming over. I would throw in some chocolate chip cookies and of course, offer them too. But then people think of that home as their home.
What I'm getting from you is like the more sensory input in a state of parasympathetic we can get, the more not just supplements are going to be bioavailable, but actually we're going to be able to digest and rest and live out the very intention that we place into the pill or the capsule itself.
Exactly. And there's also storage systems for many of these nutrients. Like for ergothioneine and mitochondrial antioxidant I've worked on, there's a unique storage system in your body for that. For all the fat-soluble nutrients, they get stored in the fat or the liver, like vitamin A, D, E, K, like they all get stored there. There's antioxidants that get stored in the skin, like the carotenoids. Like this is very common that we can draw upon these resources in times of stress. And quite frankly, we're depleted most of the time because we're in stress most of the time. So there's an ideal amount of stress, the idea of hormesis, right? Like if you think of the bell curve, there is the perfect amount of stress to the perfect amount of adaptation. And that would be the peak of the bell curve. That would be your like ideal hormetic stress. And then if you're going up that curve, you're not adding enough stress to get enough adaptation. And then on the other side of that curve, you're getting too much stress. And so you're not getting an ideal amount of adaptation because the body's overwhelmed. I can't just never have worked out and run a marathon. I can't never have worked out and spend 3 hours in the gym and expect to get good results, right? Yeah. And I can't spend 10 minutes in the gym and expect to get good results, or run a quarter mile and expect to get good results. There's somewhere that's this ideal stress. And by the way, that can change day to day based on all of the other stressors in your life. So if I'm also doing fasting, if I'm also doing keto, if I'm doing cold plunging, I just lost my job, I'm having relationship stress.
Yeah.
Maybe that workout is too much stress today, and it's not enough stress on another day.
This is so good. I love science, as do you. And on the screen right now, y'all, is another study, Department of Nutrition at a Brazilian university, Nutraceuticals in the management of autonomic function and related disorders showed that when the ANS, the automatic electrical system,
autonomic neural system,
is overactivated, right? If it's in stress dominance, absorption and bioavailability of compounds are compromised. But conversely, when you're in a parasympathetic state, the body's uptake mechanisms work more effectively. So the same supplement can perform very differently depending on your neural state. So this isn't just your anecdotal sharing of like journeys and your own supplementation routine. This is like study after study. And that was one of many that I saw around this. Does this even surprise you anymore?
No, Dr. Matthew Cook, who's like done like the ketamine reset, which is amazing. So like when he's doing deep ketamine work with his patients, that's when he's also administering like exosomes, CoQ10, things to do a mitochondrial reset for healing, because you're in your deepest parasympathetic state. And think about where you could get when you're just in like alpha brainwave state, right? Like, and you're kind of more in flow. But what if you get into like theta and gamma and, you know, some of these states where you're like in the deepest levels of meditation and gratitude and Zen. Your body is primed in a way that doesn't even compare to when we just talk about like this kind of duality of sympathetic, parasympathetic. It could go well beyond that to where you're truly plastic in a scientific sense of like you're truly moldable in terms of your physiology, not just better bioavailability utilization, but you are able to rewrite the code. You can go into the operating system and start playing around with the code like the Matrix and change all that. So that's why there's a lot of excitement coming around potentially pairing up these deeper states through flashing lights, binaural beats, through certainly psychedelics and holotropic breath work and some of these tools where like we can get ourselves into some of these different brainwave states and electrical states to where now we're truly able to rewrite symptomology.
Well, you know what I was visualizing when you were talking, Shawn, was like every medical room in a hospital is like fluorescent light, gray wallpaper, some like 1970s orange plushy pad with like some Kleenex in the corner and all the things on the wall that make people sick. That's what they're literally in when they're getting medicated. So it's like, duh, I think it's a news flash for all of us. The plants, the smells that we have in the room, like it seems to me like the entire medical system needs like an interior designer to come in and change the room of every hospital so that we can be in state. It's like symptomology care versus actual root cause care.
Well, Chris Rock talked about with drug dealers, there's no money in the cure, the money's in the comeback, right? Like it's no different with the street drug dealer than it is with big pharma. Yeah. So no one's interested in the cure. He's like, what is the last thing they cured? Polio? Like no one's interested in that. There's no money in that. And so that's the Western system that we're in. And also the way that these medications / drugs work typically, because this is how they get patented, is they inhibit an enzyme of metabolizing something along a pathway. What's going to happen over time is the body will find a way for homeostasis to take place, to find a way kind of, if you're damming the river, so to speak, with these logs, that would be my metaphor or analogy, is that it's going to find a way over, around, and through. And so what do we see with medications? They tend to work 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. But in time, subdural hematomas and, bleeding and, internal, liver dysfunction and, it's like higher suicide rates on your antidepressant. It's like, what? Like, you ever listen to these and you're like, what? And they have people smiling and dancing and laughing like on the screen. So you don't notice all these things that they're saying and rolling across the screen. And you're like, that's insane what I just heard. I'm going to take this medication. So Western medication can work in an acute sense, we have the best system for dealing with trauma, like trauma in the sense of physical trauma.
Yeah, broken legs,
a car accident, plastic surgery, dealing with something in the moment. But as far as weeks out, months out, years out, absolutely not. This is the complete wrong path. And of course, all the stuff that we're talking about gets discarded as magic, as non-science, as woo. And it's very frustrating because the science deeply supports it. And it's what we're evolved for. We are powerful beings that are meant to, I just mentioned homeostasis. I just mentioned hormesis, adaptation. We're meant to deal with our surroundings in powerful ways where we can change our physiology and become, if you believe this, new species. It's like, okay, well, that's pretty powerful. Like, so what do we believe? How can you believe the same people that say, like, you know, that might tell some religious person that evolution is evolution is fact, and that your religion is a farce, are also saying to not believe in the power of you being able to change your own physiology?
Listen, everything so far that we've talked about has led to this moment. I haven't had the chance to share this with you personally, nor have I talked about it on any podcast. So I'm just going to go for it.
Let's go.
The state that you're describing, even the work you did with Mind Valley in the States, and even honestly, the work you're doing with Paraxanthine, which we're going to get into in just a little bit after this.
Sure.
Like, whether it's a medicine of psychedelic therapeutic, like adaptogen of the soul, I guess you could say, or it's some kind of supplement that we take. The state that we're in is it's not of greater importance. It is the importance. I was sitting right there about 3 weeks ago with a mutual friend, Mike Zeller. And I sat there, and for y'all that have done any type of IFS work, or I know you have an MDMA therapy, like true therapeutics with like a facilitator there.
Yeah.
I sat there for 2 hours, Shawn, and I fought it tooth and nail. I have never in my life been completely out of state and heart closed with a medicine that's designed for heart opening. It's never happened to me before. And I'm 45 years old and I've done many journeys. So I'm fighting it for like literally over 2 hours. And then all of a sudden, my ego, I could actually feel my egoic sense crack. And I went down and actually physically went like this. And I came up with a deep breath and I just said, oh my God, it's been me this entire time. It's been me fighting my wife, projecting my mother wounds, projecting my father wounds onto my wife and my children, and this podcast. Like, our ability to just be friends and have a tennis match right now existed and has always existed. But the way that it feels in my body right now, and the insight that I got from what we're talking about today, being in a state and then taking a medicine, even though I had said the intention out loud, you know, my intention is to heal, my intention is to get to the truth, it was the intention that I said. The truth of the state that we're in, whether it's through MDMA or any kind of supplement, is so paradoxical at times, because the way in which I fought it so deeply, the healing that came from that, and the deep breath and the allowing of the truth to come through me, which was, it's actually been Josh Trent projecting all this stuff onto his wife. We've been in men's groups. We've done work together for a long time. Like, you've seen me, you know me. But my ability to not see myself, it was like from NLP. I was unconsciously incompetent. I didn't even know that I didn't know that I was doing all of these things. But the medicine broke me so wide open that I was able to cry and apologize and take ownership. And oh my God, my life has been so different. Like, the way that I feel, the way that I operate, the way that I speak, the way that I handle stress, everything changed. I just wonder, like, how many people could be so served by getting into state like we're describing, and then having, whether it's MDMA or psilocybin or any kind of medicine, which would then unlock a profound awareness to the way in which they're not in state when they're taking supplements that they're spending hundreds or even thousands of dollars a month on. There's a lot there. So I'll just ask you this question. Yeah. Have you ever had a moment like I described, where you were fighting it, you were not in state, and then all of a sudden, boom, ego shedding moment, and then full feelings of grief, sadness, anger, despair, shame. But on the other side was love. Have you had a moment like that in your life?
100%. I had done a lot of work in psychedelics, like I said, and going to Costa Rica. I went there thinking, well, now that I'm no longer in a marriage, I'm going to go to this cool place. I'm going to be on the beach. I'm going to meet beautiful women, but higher level spiritual women. And I'm going to have like this beautiful relationship and, live the life down in Costa Rica. What I found is I went down there. I felt that all these people were actually in the state that I wished I was in. They saw me for not being in my truth. They saw me in a different vibration. At that time, I was not only not in my truth, but probably like predatory towards women because I was hurt. And I was just, as you were talking about, projecting hurt. And I just wanted just the validation, right, of just having a beautiful woman. And they could feel like I was like pretending to be spiritual. I was just projecting my wounds. And so I was just ended up being alone almost the entire year I was there and just working through what I needed to work through, which was my grief, which was a love that was lost, a life that I had built, a house that I had built, pets that I had, cars that I had, friends that I had that were now lost to some degree. Some things can be, salvaged, but to some degree it was lost. And grief is about the love that was there and the loss of it and acknowledging that love and the loss and being able to move on. And for me, I did some deep work in grief that maybe I could have spent the rest of my life trying to work through if I hadn't had that time to really be present with myself and alone, deeply alone in the jungle, by the ocean, just feeling nature in its rawness alone. No devices, no distractions, no women, just alone. And I feel like that gets to the root of maybe the deepest level of what we're talking about is being in your truth. Does your body believe the bullshit that you're saying? Are you lying all the time to your body? Hey, you know what? We're going to go to that, party next week. And, no, we're not. Like, hey, I'd love to see you later. When? I'm going to eat right today. No. I'm going to go to the gym tomorrow. No, you don't. How much bullshit are you talking and your body doesn't believe you? If you are in your truth, now when you say something and you set an affirmation, an intention, you tell your body what's about to happen with the nourishment of your body. Now your body's believing you. And now it's amplifying where you would have been by just saying something.
Dude, this is not a flex. We spoke at Dave Asprey's conference this year. I think you were like 2 doors down. It's on the screen right now. I believe, and that I can feel this in my body when I share this with you. My freedom is only there. It's only felt when my biology is not arguing with my reality. Full stop. That was one of the slides that I presented on. I think I even shared it with you and Hannah at your house that day when I had it on your TV.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Like what you're describing and what I'm starting to really grok as a man, as a human being, as a storyteller, as a program creator is like, oh my God, I've been operating this old software that says I can just keep pushing through and ignore the wisdom of my body and create results. But then at what cost? At what cost do we create results and then shorten our lifespan and have a shitty health span, even in the face of all these supplements? Like what I'm saying is there's no golden ticket, even with your high level of supplemental knowledge, that could out-supplement a person who's not living biological and reality-based truth.
Exactly.
It's not possible.
What are your pillars? It's like financial, spiritual,
mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, and financial.
If those are in dissonance, if they are not aligned with what your truth is in any of those pillars, are you in flow? Are you in energetic ease?
No.
You are in dis-ease.
Which brings an
heading
opportunity
towards disease.
And it brings an opportunity for us to just be honest and mature men or women about the fact that we're not integrity. I feel like in the past month, I've cleaned up every little shred, team, finance, relationships, friendships, messages, like anywhere that I'm even like 0.5% out of integrity, it loads my physiology and then my reality isn't in alignment with my body. Do you feel this? Like the cleanup process that happens. And I wonder how you feel about this. The more cleanup we do, you said you only needed a little bit of dose when you were clean. Mm-hmm. You took what you thought was a microdose, and it turned into this full-blown journey.
Yep.
What I get from you there and what I'd love for you to expand on is like the cleaner we become spiritually, mentally, emotionally, physically, the cleaner we become, we don't need as much supplements. We don't need as much medicine. We don't need as much of anything because we're just so at peace. Do you find this? The cleaner that you become in your domains, that you don't really need as much supplementation or as much exterior outer things.
I'm the supplement guy, and I'm going to tell you that you don't need supplements. The supplements are the training wheels. They're showing your body how to do the things. It's no different from doing the breath work, doing the meditation. If you were a Zen master, you can just drop in. How do I know how to drop? I don't know how to drop in. I need to take L-theanine. I need to, take the magnolia bark. I need to do the breath work.
Take
I
my
need
kava
to
shot.
Dim the lights. Yeah. I need to have no distractions. I need to be kind of centered and, get in my right position of my body. And then I'm working on, there's distracting thoughts, ruminating thoughts coming in. Okay, I'm getting there. It could take years or a lifetime to get there. What is it? Those are training wheels to teach yourself how to do it on command. But it is possible. Anything's possible. You don't need the supplements. They are the training wheels.
Well, I told you that you go against the grain of the industry, man. That was pretty against the grain right there. So then, okay, let's shift then. So if people are taking supplements, it's because they feel a sense of fatigue, dysbiosis, or burnout. Would you say that's correct? Maybe there's other categories too. So then what's the real, what is the felt sense? What is the real difference between burnout and normal fatigue?
It goes back to is it acute or chronic, right? That's the idea of stress acutely is ideal, is hormetic. It makes you more resilient, makes you anti-fragile, makes you harder to break, harder to kill.
That's such a good phrase, anti-fragile.
Right?
Yeah.
But if we have it chronically, if we don't get into parasympathetic, if we don't get some of that feminine, healing energy, nourishing energy, relaxing energy, then that chronic stress is breaking us down. That dis-ease becomes disease over time. Unease is okay. That's making us stronger acutely. To get on the roller coaster and kind of face your fears, but if I constantly feel like my life is a roller coaster, that's not ideal. So it's chronic versus acute is what I would question.
And how would one know when they're in chronic issues versus acute? What would the symptomology be?
The red flags. This is just like inflammation is ideal acutely. Inflammation chronically is not ideal. Insulin and blood glucose being elevated, great. Acutely, not ideal. Chronically. Mm-hmm. So if all of these systems are staying up, all the red flags are there, the breakdown is happening, it becomes very apparent. And you can certainly look at your a global assessment when you walk in to see a doctor, or that your skin color isn't ideal, your hair growth isn't ideal, your eyes don't look like they have a shine to them, your skin doesn't have a glow to it, you have kind of a pallor. This would be very obvious. And then if you look at blood pressure, that's going to be off. If you look at the heart rate, that's going to be off. HRV is off. Your sleep is off. If I looked at CRP and IL-6 and inflammatory markers, those are going to be off. If I look at hemoglobin A1C, HOMA-IR, some of these things around blood glucose, those are off. Insulin levels. Like all of these systems are going to be off because you are chronically stressed, and all the danger warning like lights are flashing, and we're still trying to push the system. We're still trying to divert the energy to the shields and to the phasers when we're not in war and we have no energy left.
Yeah, it's the energy that we crave, and it's the heart. It's the cart before the horse. I said heart. It's the heart and the cart before the horse. Like, we all need energy to generate so that we can move our bodies, which then gives us all these beautiful benefits. Yet most people are struggling with not enough energy to be inspired to work out or train. In steps Paraxanthine, which has been like, literally, I've already shared this with you in person, on camera and off. It's the same thing for you and I. This supplement inside of this drink, and even in any form, Paraxanthine, completely changed my life in every way. I was dealing with headaches, digestive issues, mood disturbances. I was a real jerk, man, with caffeine. But I did it. I was a personal trainer for 10 years. So I'd slam like 2 espressos in the morning before my clients. And I just got used to it. I was kind of learned helplessness, if you will. When I met you and I found through Luke's story, actually, he introduced me to your product. I was like, wow, why do I feel so good? But then I'm not a jerk at the end of the day. This is a real big caveat for people where they need the energy to work out and get the benefits, but they don't have the energy. Can you expand on Paraxanthine? And we'll talk about whatever kind of novel ingredients that you're into right now, which is probably quite a bit. But let's lead off with Paraxanthine, because I feel like, gosh, people are still, there's like media that just happened now with Kim Kardashian partnering with Update, and it's going to be in all these big stores like Walmart, et cetera. Like, this is really changing the tide in the energy drink field because it's not caffeine. So what is the core difference if people have never heard of Paraxanthine before between Paraxanthine derivative or caffeine?
Let's go into that. But when I think about being overstimmed, maxed out, catecholamines maxed, stressed out, that means that you're going back to that idea of the system being overwhelmed. There's decision fatigue. This goes back to the idea of being in your truth is much harder because you don't have the resilience because you are maxed out with that decision fatigue. So when you feel maxed out, when you feel tired, when you feel overwhelmed, it's a fine line that you're walking, and anything that's difficult to do feels like too much right now.
Yeah.
And so that decision fatigue is actually keeping you out of integrity. So that's a big factor. And then there's the idea of the anterior cingulate cortex, where doing hard things over time will get easier. You can train the anterior cingulate cortex to do hard things. And over time, you keep doing those hard things, the idea of doing hard things gets easier. But when you don't do hard things very much, a hard thing seems overwhelming and difficult. So those are very relative to the way that a caffeinated, nicotined society Adderalled society might feel. We're trying to get energy from a body that doesn't have it because the body is overwhelmed and not in integrity. Beyond that, 60% of us are slow metabolizers of caffeine. The majority of us are slow metabolizers of caffeine. So what does that mean? The caffeine itself is actually fairly toxic. It's in plants to repel bugs. It's like a natural insecticide to protect the plants. And it's fairly toxic. Has all the side effects that you expect. We used to talk about Paraxanthine as the metabolite of caffeine, but now I think of caffeine as the dirty precursor to Paraxanthine. Paraxanthine is the thing that is efficacious, the thing that is driving the benefits of neuroplasticity, of increased blood flow via nitric oxide, via PDE9 and GMP, and increased glutathione and catalase and decreased oxidative stress, increased BDNF and neuroplasticity, increased dopamine, which is protective to the brain. In a long-term, kind of slower sense, dopamine is actually very healthy to the brain. Like, think of doing like a cold plunge, which keeps it up for an hour, versus doing hours, sorry, instead of like doing something like cocaine, which, peaks very quickly. Like there's a big difference between things that are dopaminergic in a healthy sense versus in an unhealthy kind of quick peak, quick crash kind of way. So all of these mechanisms of paraxanthine are actually healing and neuroprotective to the brain, not just nootropic acutely. And we see this. There was a study that we did with e-gaming. This is Super Smash Brothers, which is like a really good test in e-gaming of kind of one-on-one ability versus like a lot of first-person shooters that are kind of more team-oriented and there's more variables. And what we saw is we looked at 0, which is baseline, 1 and 2 hours of them playing the game. And we looked at it at 0, 3, and 6 weeks. And what we saw was there was a time effect, not only acutely in that first session that was measured at 0, or the first week essentially, and at 0, 1, and 2 hours, where there was benefit to the paraxanthine versus the caffeine. But when we looked at the time effect over time, at the 3 weeks, the people that took the paraxanthine were actually getting better at 1 hour and 2 hours. There wasn't a drop off. And then at 6 weeks, they were even better still. So there was an acute time effect where people got better versus caffeine having like a negative time effect where you actually get kind of worse over time.
Yeah.
This is having an acute time effect and a chronic time effect. So we do see acute benefit. It's nootropic, meaning it works in the moment, single use. But it's also having a chronic time effect where it's neuroprotective, healing the brain, improving the health of the brain. This is where it's really exciting. There was another study that we did with athletes doing a 10K race. We gave them a multitasking test before and after the race. We looked at caffeine, paraxanthine, placebo, and caffeine and paraxanthine together. The caffeine group had an increase of 23% of mental errors after the race. There was a 4% increase with placebo, and you'd expect to see a little worse because they're fatigued and they raced. With paraxanthine, we saw an 11% decrease. They were actually improving their performance post-race on a mental multitasking test, a task switching test is how it would be said better. So, and then when we look at the delta between caffeine and paraxanthine, that delta is 35%. Like it is dramatically different. They were dramatically increasing their mental errors on caffeine, and they're dramatically decreasing their mental errors on paraxanthine. This is why I kind of boiled it down to both are stimulating neurologically and also to the central nervous system or neural system, if you will. But it's the frazzle versus the flow. There's a big difference in how the body is experiencing caffeine as a molecule versus paraxanthine as a molecule. And we see that caffeine itself has a lot of side effects, and theophylline, which is a potential metabolite of caffeine, but is not going to be with paraxanthine, has a lot of side effects as well, a ton. So you're avoiding all of that. You're avoiding the bio-individuality by just going straight to the paraxanthine. And we see that about 94% of people experience paraxanthine well and similarly. Whereas if I talk about caffeine to you, we are talking about potentially two very different things in how we're experiencing it. You could metabolize it in 1.5 hours. You could, for the half-life, I could be 10.5 hours. You could clear that caffeine in 3 hours. I could still be clearing it 3 days later.
Yo, listen, my brother, my sister-in-law, they can drink a coffee and go to bed. Yeah. If I did that, it would be freaking disaster.
Me too.
On the screen right now, because I'm just loving the science of this, is this paraxanthine supplementation increases muscle mass strength and endurance in mice. I believe you talked about this on a previous podcast, but basically the paraxanthine group gained more muscle, 17% greater strength, 40% better endurance on the treadmill, and higher nitric oxide for blood flow. Have you experienced any kind of sexual performance from the paraxanthine?
We have not explored that.
I mean, you don't need to go X-rated, but like,
there is this effect on PDE9 inhibition that I was alluding to, that there is increased nitric oxide to working muscles, potentially to the phallus, like, which would be like penis or clitoris potentially. Like, by the way, like PDE5 inhibitors like Viagra and things like that are actually originally designed for women. It works the same way with women as it would men. It increases blood flow and stimulation to that area. So yes, and it also works to the brain. That is what I experience, is more blood flow, more of that cerebral effect that is just not like the stimulation of caffeine. It's very different. Like, people experience paraxanthine in a wholly different way than caffeine.
To me, it feels like a float. Like if you had a cloud and the cloud was paraxanthine, you would float and then it would gently put you down on earth.
Yeah.
Caffeine would be like climbing a 15-story building and then jumping off and hitting the concrete. Like, that's what it feels like in my neural system. So then it begs this beautiful question for this year and beyond. I don't know how many more studies y'all are going to do on paraxanthine. I'm sure you have some in the hopper. Beyond just the scientific validation, I think it's really just the proof is in how we feel. So much of our podcast today has been around sense and feeling and scent and what is our experience and our intention before we even take a supplement. The same thing with paraxanthine that allows people to get energy that's sustainable with a lift and a gentle down is really what is being called for, because if we go any harder as a society, we're going to burn out and we're going to die out, essentially. We'll get caught up in this loop of constant doing, and we're essentially just going to be at war with each other and just deplete ourselves to death. That's what it feels like to me. Paraxanthine is an answer. This isn't like me doing a sales pitch, by the way, guys. Although Jack LaLanne said, if you like something, if you love it, then sell it. I think that's beautiful. The reason I love this is because my family, my friends, everybody that comes over, my mother-in-law, like anybody that comes to the house, we have an update fridge and they just go get the updates. Like, I can't wait for my dad to try it. He's going to be here next week, like 2 weeks from now. So it begs this question, on a societal level, if we're so burnt out, but yet we're taking probably more supplements than ever before, what is the answer that paraxanthine is really solving for the entire supplement industry?
It is the training wheels, and it is allowing for an energy to be felt that is more nourishing to the body. Again, it goes back to this idea of, is it depletive or is it nourishing? And I just described to you how one is the frazzle and one is the flow. One is having not just an acute effect, but a chronic effect on improving performance. And you mentioned, and I do believe this, the muscular performance as well as the neurological performance. And so this is the lens that we need to look at. Is it depletive or is it nourishing? Like, what are we doing with our supplements? Like, and a supplement that should be experiential, is it to you? I know for me, things like ashwagandha or rhodiola, like when I was really in this state of fight, flight, or freeze consistently, I didn't feel those things. I quadruple dose them. I didn't feel anything. Like, I had to take, even like a bang to feel anything.
You drank a bang?
Not typically.
No shame, dude.
But that would be
bang
like
energy?
Yeah. That would be what I'd need to like feel something, right? It's very unhealthy. Or taking like Nuvigil or Provigil or, or like people take Adderall, same idea, like to feel something, but they're not feeling like ginseng or B12. Ask yourself why that is. Something that other people can feel is because their nervous system is different. And when you walk up to those people, do you sense how relaxed they are, how at ease they are? How do they deal with stress? I bet they're very resilient.
Very.
And you can just fly off the handle at any second. You don't feel any supplements unless you triple dose them. Think about that. And think about how that relates to your food and how you're assimilating and nourishing from your food. Are you spending all the money on organic, non-GMO, all this stuff? Does it matter for you? I'm not saying it's a bad thing to get those, but that money, that, hydrogen, water, that superfill, all these things, are you utilizing it? The workout, are you utilizing it? All these things that you're doing to potentially benefit your body is not primed to receive.
is so good. I learned this from Dan Party. He taught me this concept of heuristics, where the brain likes to have shortcuts. And so I think for many of us, when we buy a supplement, there's a heuristic in the brain that's like, oh, well, the supplement is going to heal all my problems. but it's not true. There's like there's a fallacy there. And I think it's tied to identity. And I wonder, like, my program and what we're doing here with the life method and my journey into being an identity transformation architect and like moving from a storyteller, like ripping a tree out of the ground, Shawn, and planting it somewhere else. Not exactly the most peaceful thing, if you know what I mean. You've gone through many transformations in your life. How much of dis-ease or over supplementation is tied to someone's lack of identity, lack of love for themselves?
Probably quite a bit.
How so?
Well, I'm just thinking of what's popping in my head is right now the idea of ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. I'm thinking about ask not what your supplement can do for you and your heuristics, but what you can do for your supplement. We talk about mushrooms as teachers, as having this synergistic relationship with us, right? But we don't think of our supplements as that. We don't think of them as powerful. We don't think of them as the training wheels, which means teachers. They're teachers. Are we allowing them to teach us? Are we priming ourselves for that lesson? So are we playing a role with, yes, they can have a biological effect, but are we bringing to the table our psychosomatics, our physiology, our neurology to work with it? So ask not what your supplement can do for you, but what you can do for your supplement.
I like how you threw JFK in there. That's pretty, I don't know if we were talking about JFK on the podcast before. So then identity transformation of Shawn, you went from being near death, wanting to leave the planet, to then now working with companies that impact hundreds of millions of lives, essentially, at this point. You're working with 150 different brands and companies, maybe more. The identity transformation that I've been on, it's funny, I put my family on the table recently. I just put all their photos here. And I know that, your bonus daughter and your relationship with Hannah, and like, these are all the fruits of the suffering that you went through. And that's why I have my family here, because I feel like, gosh, what are we doing any of this for? This seeking, this truth journey that we're on, and even the way you're impacting the supplement world and how I'm desiring to wield conscious conversations that allow people to see life through a different lens. Like, what are we doing this for, if not for the love of our family? So then in your own identity transformation in 2026 and beyond, how have you recapitulated? How have you reoriented Shawn as a human being? And what's your current identity transformation that you're on right now as you learn how to deeper love your bonus daughter and your soon-to-be wife?
It's a great question, because for most of my life, my identity has been the doing. Luckily, I've hit a point in my career where I'm very blessed and I love what I do, and I get to make impact with the work I'm doing, as you do, which is a blessing. Most people don't have that. And
it takes a lot of work to get there.
It took a lot of work to get here. 100%. Agreed with that. Yeah. But now I'm thinking, as I'm kind of ascending the peak, if you will, like I'm now thinking about, okay, cool. And I need to think about the other half of my life, or whatever that looks like. I need to think about who am I sharing this peak with? It's like if you had like the biggest, most beautiful yacht in the world, and you're out there on the open seas, and you've got the chandeliers and the jet skis and the shrimp cocktail and the champagne and all the things, and you're on this beautiful yacht that's huge and multi-million-dollar yacht, and you're on it by yourself. That doesn't sound very fun. I'm ready to celebrate my life with the ones that I love the most, that can teach me how to love myself more deeply and how to challenge myself in the right ways, how to look at that reflection in the right way, because we're always projecting, like it or not, on everyone, and everyone is a reflection back on you. As you talked about how it's me, all these lessons where it's me, it's always you are constructing this external reality from your internal beliefs. So if we adjust our internal beliefs, we can adjust our external reality. And so having this deeper relationship with myself, with God, with nature, with my friends, with my family is how I can construct more joy. And ultimately the best marker that they've shown is contentment, because that can be permanent. Whereas joy or, happiness or, those things aren't permanent and shouldn't be. Like you have emotions. This is like why Inside Out 1 and 2 are so beautiful.
The best.
They're not just for kids. They're for everyone.
It's like the 10th time we've mentioned this.
And it's so good.
So good.
So contentment is very possible to maintain. And you do see that in the cultures that have the best quality of life, the best longevity is they have contentment, they have connection, they have purpose, they have the ability to slow down. Quite often they live by water and some things like that you see in these blue zones, et cetera. But most of it's about that contentment and connection.
Yeah, I remember Jordan Peterson was being interviewed and he said, happiness, having a goal, when people say, how do you want your life to be? What's your vision for your life? And I think he was interviewing someone and they said, oh, I just want to be happy. And when women are polled, not to put women on the spot, most women will say, I just want to be happy. But men will say, I want to feel on purpose, on mission. Not to separate either one. They're both really beautiful goals. But Jordan Peterson said, to have happiness as your life goal is a foolish endeavor because happiness is always fleeting. It's always this thing of a moving target. And so if you're judging one's life quality by a target that's always moving, you're always going to feel out of life. You're always going to feel out of sorts. So then for me, and I'm curious how you feel about this, for me, my greatest endeavor is to learn how to feel my emotions and how to speak truth to my friends and my family and my business. That's my ultimate goal in this lifetime. And if I can do that, man, that is a beautiful life. So then how does Shawn build a scaffolding around feeling his emotions and around speaking truth, learning how to unconditionally love self and other on planet Earth? What's the scaffolding look like for you there?
That's a great question. And when I think about like the kind of spokes on the wheel is what we're talking about with that relationship with God, self, nature, family, friends. It's such a good point about the more I speak truth to myself, the more inner work I do, as we said, like the better that relationship with God will be, with family will be, with friends will be, with nature will be. And the more work I do in connection with family, friends, God, nature, the better my truth and relationship with self will be. And so it's all that contentment and connection that I was talking about. And so as you're saying, can you just be in integrity in your truth across the board? And I think just starting wherever you can start.
Yes.
Like whatever that looks like, it's like, instead of just saying, yeah, that sounds fine, stop saying that's fine or that's okay and start speaking your truth. Start saying, these are my boundaries ahead of time instead of having discussed later on, because who should you be disgusted with? You didn't lay the ground rules. You didn't set the groundwork down. You didn't set the boundaries at the beginning. The only person's fault it is yours. There's no one to blame but yourself, but also grant yourself grace.
Yeah, the stone cap of this conversation for me is what I'm still working on. And that is practicing and being what I just asked you the question about. It's not easy to unconditionally love self and others. You could go to 1,000 ayahuasca journeys. You still might not master it because it's this deeply inside game that smart supplements and relationships and all the pillars that you mentioned can really, really help with. But I wonder, man, like, what are you still healing from? What are you still working on to make this scaffolding super strong?
Wow. I think I have this, someone once said to me, well, that was very boomer of you, a very young person. Like, and I do admire my work ethic. Mm-hmm. And I got that from my father, and my father came from an abusive background, and there was, abuse early on in my childhood. And I think about that work ethic and where that comes from. And it comes from an insecurity. It comes from a need to be validated. It comes from like really an internal sadness, a lack of stillness, certainly a lack of contentment. It's one thing to have like a healthy drive. And just because I love what I do, I want to do more of it. Mm-hmm. And I have that now. But there's still this piece that I'm working on to have peace. The ultimate marker of success to me shouldn't be money, even time and energy get mentioned a lot. Really, it's like if you peel back the layers of the onion, the 5 whys of what, like even love, like what is it you really want? And I feel like the thing that's behind all the things is freedom. And freedom comes from truth. And once you are in your truth, you will have freedom. And once you have freedom, you will be in your truth. And then you will have the rest figured out. So I don't feel free. I do feel connected to ideas of what it means to be a man. Mm. I do have feelings of what it means to be successful, to be a protector, to be a provider, to be compared to the other man. Am I worthy? Do I have the car, the stuff, the accomplishments? There's still a part of me that cares about my resume, so to speak, and how I present. I've worked on that very hard, and it's more in the background now. Mm. But that is the piece that I want to be free from. I just want to be Shawn, and that's good enough. Now that goes back to my very first journey, my epiphany. When I was suicidal at that point, and I was ready to take my life, was I can have love and be loved. That was game changing to me. And I could have rationalized that by talking to you, cerebralized that, if that's a word, but it's not felt in your heart. And once that was felt in my heart, that everything shifted. Like I didn't need to prove myself, because all these people, when I was in this journey and I was, at this kind of celebrity kind of journey, if you will, of like biohackers and people that are very accomplished in my space. And I was not nearly accomplished at this point as they were. And all these people were just holding space for me, getting me pillows, getting me nourishment, helping me to the bathroom. Like they didn't even know who I was. And the whole night, like as I'm kind of working through my journey, I'm like, why are they helping me? Why are they doing this? Why would they do this? I didn't give them my resume. They don't know who I am. Like I don't have value to them. Mm-hmm. And then it just came to me. What if I could just have love and be loved for who I am instead of what I do? And I was like, wow, that release, that freedom that came from that thought. I remember just staring at the ceiling for hours of like my whole life just changed. It sounds so simple, but it's so dramatic.
Thank you for sharing that. The biggest breakthroughs are simple, but the road to get there ain't easy.
No,
I found that time and time again.
I will work on that for the rest of my life. I mean,
do you think that scaffolding that you're building includes you traveling on airplanes less?
Yes.
Cool. I sense that for you.
Yes, 100%. That is a thing.
And like Shawn's always gone every month. He lives down the street. I see him like once a quarter.
No, that's true. Yeah. I do feel, we've talked about this, like a pressure on one hand of kind of where the world is going at this moment. Yeah. Like there is a sense of, there is a scarcity in me that is somewhat justified, maybe, of kind of where things are going in terms of AI, robotics, CRISPR, and all the things that we're kind of hurtling towards. And I just want to lock things down for my family and get things on what I would call mailbox money. But yes, there's that is a very big goal for me in 2026, not to travel as much, do as much, but have like more intention with each of the things when I do travel, when I do take a meeting, that each of those things are moving the needle in the right direction.
So much of this conversation has meant a lot to me because it's our fourth one. I love that you've been on the pod 4 times. It's because every time is rich. And I feel like real richness is when we're practicing giving and receiving wisdom. That's rich, man. It's a rich conversation. I love you, bro. Thank you for being my friend, being on the podcast.
You know what I also get is I get wellness when I'm here, along with that wisdom.
You do. You definitely do.
I love you, man. This is beautiful. Thank you for having me on 4 times.
Yes,
I know that Rob Wolf and
John and Rob. That's it.
Those are like 2 of my good friends and heroes. So I'm held in good company. So thank you.
You are, man. Thank you for being here. Y'all share this podcast if you've been noticing in yourself this lack of energy. We get to have energy. It's not just me using NLP. We get to have energy this year. Try the Paraxanthine. It's on the screen right now, joshtrent.com/update. Use the code JOSH20 if you would like to. This isn't me telling you what to do. If coffee isn't working, give it a shot. For Christ's sake. Also, you never know when just sharing a podcast, how many podcasts have we shared together or that you share to a friend, and all of a sudden their entire frame of reality flips, especially if they listen to Dr. Stephen Young.
Yes.
So y'all share this podcast and be a supporter of not just this wellness and wisdom in your life, but for the people that you love and care about. Why else are we here doing what we're doing? So until we see you on number 5 at some point, I'm wishing you love, wellness, but most importantly, peace and power. You cannot have power unless it comes from peace. We'll see you next week.